You mentioned Nvidia, Jim. We're going to be on watch for market cap levels. I think 163.93 would get you to 4 trillion, which would be the first ever.
You know, look, I think that there's this bias against, I've been hitting this issue because a lot of my friends are talking about it. There's this bias against semis. We kind of feel like semis can never be this valuable. Well, I mean, I remember when Microsoft first became, software can't be valuable because Exxon is valuable, and Exxon's big. You know, you got you have this whole period, like beginning in you could say beginning in 1985, where it was always Exxon. And now we think about, like, what was Exxon being up there? It's just all it was oil in the ground. We are now thinking, you know what, the real value is Nvidia. Why? Because it's not just hardware, it's software. And that's something that Michael Intrater, who's a very, very smart guy, Mike was saying, listen, don't forget, we have software. Nvidia would say they have software. It's a stack of software. That's something that eludes a lot of people. But just because it's semis, because it's Texan, because it's NXPI, because it's KLA, which is capital equipment, because it's Lam, capital equipment, don't count them out. And Nvidia, the one thing I would say about Nvidia is people have to recognize there's so much in a platform that this company is worth a great deal more than it's currently trading. I really believe that.
Yeah, well, we mentioned yesterday Citi going to 190.
Yeah.
You mentioned CoreWeave. You did have Mike on last night, and you actually asked him about whether he's been talking to Jensen Huang about this stuff lately. Take a listen.
So you're still speaking to Jensen Huang, he's a big shareholder. He is expressing that the demand is still incredible.
Yeah, you're feeling that demand from Jensen. You're feeling it from my peers across the infrastructure and cloud space. There were some very large deals. Ours was a $12 billion deal. There was another extremely large deal that was announced after that in the last few weeks. You're continuing to see broad-based demand for the product, for the infrastructure, for the compute to be able to drive artificial intelligence.
It doesn't sound like you begrudge some of the downgrades last couple days.
No. Look, I think that when you look at what's happening, you have to go back to what Jassy said. The CEO of Amazon, he tried to say, listen, we're making the best chips, Trainium. We're going to take care of this. Got to shift the balance of power versus Nvidia. But then when I didn't confront him, but when I suggested in a convivial and conversational way, but isn't Nvidia still basically the most important? He said, yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I love about what Intrader's saying is, if you've got an Nvidia, you made it. You're okay.
You're a made man.
Yeah, you're a made man. I mean, it does feel like that. Now, people could say, hey, come on, it's just a semiconductor. I have to come back and say, if it were just a semiconductor, this stock would be at 58, not 158. People just completely misinterpret this. Now, the bears are all over the place in this thing. It's heavily shorted because they feel it's just a matter of time before the next iteration doesn't work. They don't seem to understand that the previous iterations still do work. One of the things that Intrader has made very clear that people don't understand at CoreWeave is the old NVIDIAs are still being used.
Right. Yeah, like old generation iPhones that are being refurbished and sold.
Yes, and people need them. Not everybody needs the latest and greatest. Not everyone. I remember when the 386 became the 46, and there were people on the board who said, "Okay, now we can put men on Mars instead of the moon." I said, "Well, what are they going to do on Mars?" It's like something to do on Mars. Now, of course, we think about, well, maybe Mars, must maybe
one
Mars.
day. Yeah.
But I do think that last night Intrader was really explaining how valuable the data centers become, which is why I don't think the Vertiv upgrade is all that wrong. I think people do not understand that things have switched. That the software business, whether it be, unfortunately, because I own the stock, whether it be Benioff and
back to CRM,
GitLab, who needs that? I mean, when I look at I know you can say I'm being hyperbolic.
Yes.
ServiceNow is still racking up a lot of business, but the software, enterprise software, where it makes your product observable. I mean, I got like 20 companies that make it observable. I don't want something that makes it observable. I want something that makes it better. And I don't want to have more insight into my organization via software. I want my organization to advance via hardware.
So you do.
Nvidia rapidly approaching its next mega cap milestone, driven by the AI revolution. Of course, Christina Partsinevelos is here with more. Hi, Christina.
Nvidia is inching closer to the once unthinkable, a $4 trillion market cap. Shares would need to actually hit 163.93 to make it the first company ever to cross that milestone. Despite the staggering run-up, Wall Street's bullishness hasn't faded. Citi just raised its price target to 190, citing a surge in sovereign AI demand, that governments racing to build and control their own AI infrastructure and data pipelines. Morgan Stanley says supply chain bottlenecks tied to Nvidia's new Blackwell chips are easing, but they don't expect to glut. Demand just remains way too strong. There are other catalysts in play, too. You've got autos as well as China. Bank of America highlights that a single autonomous test vehicle can generate enough data in 6 hours to fill 256 iPhones. As autonomous vehicle testing ramps up, they estimate the GPU count for autonomous driving assistance systems could grow tenfold, from 8,000 GPUs to 80,000 GPUs. As for China, Nvidia says it's assuming zero data center revenue due to export controls. So if rumors of a compliant B30 chip, that would be the Blackwell chip, are true, it could be a tailwind, not in the models, but potentially in the stock, because it would be a source of revenue from China. And I want to leave you with Nvidia's latest tweet. Nvidia reposting a headline saying OpenAI has no plans to use Google's custom chips, and added, powered. You can see powering the foundation by Nvidia. Wells Fargo calls this tweet, quote, savage, as it reinforces the view that Nvidia's chips still outperform custom silicon. Carl?
That is pretty savage. Thanks, Christina. Christina Parts.
A few bucks away on Nvidia from $4 trillion in market cap, right, would be the first one ever. When it approaches a milestone like that, somebody like you thinks what?
Is this going to be fundamental? Are you going to see this stock double again? What would it take for that stock to double again in 3 years? And it'd be really hard. But if you think about all the fundamental underpinnings of AI and how important they are to the ecosystem, and how all the other different players are playing in AI with their huge orders from all the sovereigns as well as the hyperscalers, you don't see any slowdown in demand, at least for what I'm seeing from my companies.
Okay.
All right, I hope you're all doing great today. Nvidia finished the day about 1.1% higher as it approaches $4 trillion in market cap. I want to talk about a few things in this video. First, I want to cover a few pieces of recent news. Then I want to talk about the implications of the spending bill that was signed late last week and what it means for Nvidia. And then I want to finish by talking about Nvidia's long-term future and technology. All right, so analyst upgrades continue to pour in for Nvidia, with Citi just yesterday raising their Nvidia price target up to $190 per share, citing strong sovereign AI demand. Even though Nvidia is not selling to China, demand from other regions around the world, such as the Middle East and Europe, can offset what Nvidia is missing out on in China. As Jensen told us at GTC Paris, there are 20 sovereign AI factories being planned in Europe right now, and some of them are quite large. Plus, there are many other AI factories being planned by European companies. Jensen believes that Europe's computing capacity will 10x in just 2 years. Also, since I mentioned China, Bloomberg is reporting today that China is building new data centers where they intend to use high-end Nvidia chips that they are not allowed to have under current export controls. This just underscores the importance of Nvidia's technology, as they are providing the foundational infrastructure for the AI revolution. And then another piece of news that I just learned of today is that Nvidia is seeking to expand its presence in Israel by building a new campus in the country. Nvidia issued a request for information tender to locate a plot of land to build a new campus. All right, now really quick, I want to mention some of the effects that the recently passed spending bill will have on Nvidia and semiconductor manufacturing. So the bill that was signed into law last Friday boosts tax credits for semiconductor makers building plants in the U.S. from 25% to 35%. This includes TSMC, which manufactures Nvidia's chips. This should encourage even more onshoring of production to the U.S., which ultimately benefits Nvidia. Additionally, under the bill, businesses can deduct 100% of investments in certain machinery and equipment in the same year that the investment is made. This is great for companies like TSMC, and it can also benefit Nvidia by allowing them to deduct expenses for things like R&D tools and facility improvements. This is also good for Nvidia's hyperscaler clients, as it is my understanding that they should be able to deduct expenses they incur from purchasing Nvidia systems and GPUs that they use for research and experimental purposes, such as training new AI models, developer experimentation, and research projects. I don't think the total expensing provision applies to commercial use of Nvidia's products, but it is my understanding that the provision does apply to investments in Nvidia products that are used for research and experimental use. That is my understanding of the provision at this moment. If correct, then that is a positive for Nvidia, and it should help spur even more demand for Nvidia's products. With this in mind, I think we're going to see AI models from Nvidia's large hyperscaler clients become drastically better over the coming year if they can now deduct 100% of their investments in Nvidia systems that are used for research and experimental purposes. I continue to be bullish on the long-term future of Nvidia. I seriously think the company still has a lot of runway ahead of it. That being said, I do want to mention semiconductor tariffs really quick because the president once again mentioned those today. Now that the spending bill is behind us and the tariff situation is potentially starting to wrap up, I think the administration and Commerce Department will start to focus more heavily on sector-specific tariffs, including semiconductor tariffs. Today, the president said that pharmaceutical tariffs will be coming soon and they will be 200%. He also said companies would have a year to a year and a half to move production to the U.S. before they are tariffed at the 200% rate. He then immediately followed those statements by saying that there will be tariffs on chips. Please hear me well. If semiconductor tariffs are announced and Nvidia stock trades lower, do not panic. If that happens, I would expect it to just be a short-term negative reaction that has no impact on Nvidia's long-term future. And the good news is that Nvidia has been working with their partners, such as TSMC, Foxconn, Wistron, and others, to aggressively onshore manufacturing to the U.S. Regardless of what happens with trade policy, I continue to be bullish on the long-term future of Nvidia, and I expect this company to be worth substantially more in future years than it is today, even after the historic run it's already had. There's a lot to like about Nvidia right now, and I really like the setup heading into the second half of this year. Last week, CoreWeave announced the successful deployment of the first Nvidia GB300 Blackwell Ultra system. This is Nvidia's Blackwell Ultra and is launching ahead of schedule. Nvidia originally guided for Blackwell Ultra to launch during the fiscal third quarter. Then Jensen told us at GTC Paris that GB300 was completely in production. Then there were some reports that it may launch sometime in August or September. But now here we are with official confirmation of the first GB300 deployment from CoreWeave. Blackwell Ultra appears to be slightly ahead of schedule, and it should ramp very quickly, especially starting in August and September. Blackwell Ultra is essentially an upgrade of the chips within the Blackwell system, and it is not a complete system overhaul like Blackwell was. This means we are substantially less likely to see delays in the rollout of GB300 like what we saw with the GB200 Blackwell systems. And that is very good news. Blackwell has ramped swiftly, and Blackwell Ultra should ramp even faster. After Blackwell has ramped, we should see margins return to the mid 70% range late this fiscal year, as Nvidia forecasted. We have a clear data center product roadmap that stretches all the way into 2028. In 2026, we should start to see shipments of Nvidia's next generation Vera Rubin. The Vera CPU will be Nvidia's first ever custom CPU built to work in lockstep with the GPU. And the Rubin GPU will of course provide substantial improvements compared to Blackwell. Nvidia maintains their competitive moat across the entire stack, both hardware and software. And Nvidia's software offerings in CUDA is a massive advantage for Nvidia, as it is widely recognized and the go-to choice for many developers. I think that NVLink Fusion actually strengthens Nvidia's competitive moat, as it increases the likelihood that customers will remain within Nvidia's ecosystem. Nvidia is delivering performance upgrades that are so substantial that their customers have no choice but to continue purchasing Nvidia's latest products in large quantities. Nvidia is bringing AI to the world's enterprise IT, which Jensen believes is an opportunity worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Nvidia has massive sovereign AI deals both in the Middle East and Europe, and Nvidia will play a crucial role in the future of quantum computing. Jensen told us at GTC Paris that Nvidia is working with just about everyone in the quantum industry on Nvidia's CUDA-Q platform, and that the next generation supercomputers will have a QPU assigned with QPUs connected to GPUs. Just as Nvidia used their GPUs to speed up CPUs, they're now going to do the same thing with QPUs. Jensen thinks that the world's computing capex will reach $1 trillion annually by 2030. If he is correct, then Nvidia should be worth substantially more in the years ahead than it is today. Remember to stay calm in this market. Remember to maintain a long-term perspective and do not make any hasty or irrational decisions. With all of that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about Nvidia in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.